I've got a quote here that I found kind of interesting. I saw an interview with Fiona Gregg. She is the head of investor research at Vanguard, and she talks a lot about, what we're all going through, and she said that retirement is the most financially complex time of your life. And I thought about that, and I think, you know what? I think she's absolutely right, Greg. So talk to me a little bit about why you believe, obviously, do you believe that it's the most complex financial time in your life?
Complex isn't the adjective I would use,
Okay.
but I think I know what she's getting at. So when you think about how people package information, right? Like if I want to get paid for something, I'm going to package the problem as complex. Hey, I need to justify really big fees, so I'm going to essentially say this is complicated. This is really complex. I think in reality, it's a very important decision, right? Like let's start there. Fiona. I just don't even like saying her name. Can I just call her? Maybe I'll call her Miss Gregg. Miss Gregg is hitting the nail on the head in the sense that this is a big decision because you've worked 30 years. This is your life savings. And you're basically turning around and saying, all right, I've got to make it another 30 years and I'm not working. So I've got this big pile of money and I got to figure out who I'm going to give it to. And I have to contribute to what they're going to do with it to make it last. So the complexity of a average retiree. Let's say you're listening and you're like, yeah, that's me. I'm retired. I have $1 million or $2 million socked away, and that puts you in an echelon of what I would say. You did a lot of great things. You saved, and now you're like, I want to have a good time in retirement. I don't know if it has to be that complicated, Randy, because it really is. This is really A minus B stuff equals C, which is a good retirement. A is your savings, B is your spending, and equals C, which is good times and fulfilling all of your goals of retirement. So to get there, I think the industry wants to make it complicated. They want to make it an investment problem because that's what they're comfortable with, right? I want to make investments the primary focus where we have to have certain levels of diversification and we have to have different strategies and different small caps and large caps and dividends and lions and tigers and bears. Oh my. And we're running through all this stuff. And the irony is they know that their audience, i.e. you, the retiree, has no idea what they're talking about. So they're trying to sound really fancy. I got, a diversification of actively managed funds that have delta and beta and alpha and Monte Carlo and 4% rules. And oh my gosh, did I mention that I have a CFP and I'm a fiduciary? And you're like, well, I don't know what he's saying, but these charts are shiny and I guess whatever. And, they're building all this value on complex information that really doesn't have a lot to do with your goals. But, at the end of the day, like, what does this have to do with me? And that's the right question. And it's the question we try to answer at Golden Reserve all the time. And we try to answer it by making it more human speak. And what we really want to say is, listen, you gotta account full of money. Simple enough. You've saved, you've done a great job. You've done all the work. The work is really done. And you should be celebrating and the fireworks should be going off. But now it feels like more work when you get to retirement. And like, why does it feel that way? It's because the financial industry and Fiona wants to make it complex. It doesn't need to be complex, Randy. You can have simple solutions that are predictable. And this next article that you and I are going to talk about is going to outline that you're not going to run out of money. Like that's the fun part of retirement is once you know that you're not going to run out of money and you get to that threshold, it's a mindset, not a number. Once you get there, you start having way more fun. You start doing more stuff. You start enjoying retirement. You start relaxing and you're not white knuckling the wheel of retirement anymore. You're sitting there relaxing. Now the window's going down and the music's going up and you're cruising and you're like, this is what I had pictured retirement to be, not a, master's course in investing. And I think that's because it's all they understand. It's the only thing they're comfortable talking about. It doesn't make them bad. It doesn't make financial advisors bad. It just makes them very one-dimensional. When you actually think about what the goal of retirement is, it's to do everything you want. And a lot of times that doesn't take a lot of financial engineering. It takes a lot of listening. It takes a lot of understanding your clients. It takes a lot of actually going through meetings where you're listening to what they want to achieve and not trying to do what you want to achieve, which is I want to invest and do all kinds of finance stuff. It's like, well, that's not necessary if this person just wants to enjoy their retirement. And the roadmap retirement was built because no one was listening to retirees. They weren't listening to what they actually wanted. They were doing what they wanted to do. The financial advisors, what they want to do, which is invest, and make fancy things happen. Where at the end of the day, retirees are like, dude, I just want to go to Florida month a year. I want to enjoy my grandkids. I want to go to Pee Wee football games and maybe, afford to pay them some Kona ice at the end of the game, right? These aren't big goals of trying to like manufacture, some type of, beating the S&P index by 7% is never a retiree's goal unless you're a weirdo. So like most people just want to have a good time. And if that's what you're about, then I think the roadmap for retirement, Randy, builds people a roadway that says, listen, let's see where you have any cracks. Let's look at fees, taxes, market risk, long-term care, and income. Let's break those down, see where you're at, see if there's any cracks. Let's get some accountants involved. Let's get some legal involved, and let's do a well-rounded approach. And then let's focus on spending your money. I think that's what most people don't realize is that's really what a retirement planner should be doing, is talking about how to spend your money, not invest it.
Interesting take on that. Not actually complex time of your life, but retirement is a very different and important time in your life. Income is different. You're not getting paid by your employer. You're paying yourself. Healthcare doesn't come through your employer. Now it comes through this thing called Medicare and whatever you want to do after that. Taxes, not what comes out of your check. It's a little bit different, but does it have to be complicated? Maybe not. Go through our process of going through the roadmap for retirement, and let's show you what we can do for you at Golden Reserve. Now, if you ask people how much they should save for retirement, everybody says, oh, I need $1 million. And some might say even more. But how many people actually make it to that number? You might be shocked to find out how many people have $1 million saved for retirement? 3.2% of people in this country. So why don't we talk to the other 97% today? Are the other 97% miserable? The answer is no. I've got a survey here that says 80% of people in retirement say that it meets or exceeds their expectation. So if you are grinding away in your 60s thinking that you still need $1 million to retire and be happy, maybe you don't. So, Greg, what's our message to that person who's listening today?
So, I think it's interesting because it's important. The people we talk to have roughly $1 million. So I hear what people are saying. Most people have $1 million, $2 million to come talk to us, but we also have some clients that have 500,000. Our average client's around $1 million, but we have $500,000 clients. And I think where I want to start this conversation is level setting realities, because you hear so many stories about, it's like the Joneses. Well, the Joneses have all this and the Joneses have all that, and they really actually have no bearing on what's going on in reality. So this is an interesting, I looked up smart assets, an article. I was trying to figure out, hey, how much do people spend? Because that's where we should start. What do people actually spending? Because that would drive how much you save. So the average, they went out and talked to 2,000 American retirees aged 62 to 75, which is kind of the retiree wheelhouse. Half of them, spent less than $2,000 a month.
Wow.
That's crazy, right? Half. A third of them spent between $2,000 to $4,000 per month. 16% spent between $4,000 and $7,000. And to kind of tap into your 3%, coincidentally or not coincidentally, 3% of retirees spent more than $7,000 a month, which is roughly $84,000 a year.
Uh-huh.
So for purposes of like hammering this point home, I want to be at the top end because I think it'll build confidence for everybody else. A high end spender. So let's go to the top end of the 16%. Let's say you're right around 7,000. Which would mean that you're probably in the top 5% of spenders of retirees in America. That puts you at $84,000 a year. I think most people target around 80 to 100, I think, but in reality, and I don't want to dive into it, but people don't spend linearly, that's a hard word to say, in retirement. It's a smiley face, right? You spend less every year in retirement. You do a little less. Most people don't acknowledge that in their plans, but let's just assume you spend $84,000 a year. And then I went around and I said, all right, let's figure out Social Security, because that's an important part of the puzzle, because that's adding to your, kind of fixed income, as most retirees like to call it. So I went to Kiplinger. They got great information if you ever want to peek at that stuff. The average in 2025, the average individual Social Security check is right around $2,000. So for a couple, double it, $48,000. So $2,000 I thought was fascinating, but I wanted to just sidebar on Social Security. You know that I don't like to talk about it. Because I think it's kind of mechanical. But I did think it was fascinating because this article did reference, just for you guys, edification. If you wait till 66, the full benefit of Social Security is $4,018 in 2025. $4,018. That's double. If you wait till 70, the full benefit is $5,108. That is almost triple. So another thing to put in, put on your, little notepad. When you elect Social Security, and if you have longevity in your family, can make a huge difference. You could almost triple your Social Security payment. But I think this number is important. Let's go back to the average, though. Let's just go back to 2000. The average couple is sucking down about $48,000 a year in Social Security. And if they're in the top 4 or 5% spending in America, 84,000 would be what they spend. So the difference of that would be they need $36,000 of their savings a year to survive. I'll say it again. $36,000. If you have $1 million and your money's in a money market or, something pretty soon, your income's kicking that off. Now, let's assume that you don't trust anybody and you bury all of your money in your backyard. That $1 million is buried in a chest in your backyard, and you don't have any interest coming in. On $1 million, you would last 27 years. 27 years doing everything you want, spending in the top 4% of retirees. So why do I share all this number soup with you? It's because people in the industry are so misaligned. Retirees in the industry are so misaligned because the retirees are like, scare them, they're going to run out of money. And everyone else is like, I'm kind of scared, but I don't know why, because I think I have enough money and my money's growing. But still, they said I should be scared. So you have this dichotomy of this financial industry screaming at you that you're going to run out of money, but your accounts keep getting better every year. And you're like, I don't get it, but maybe I just don't get finance. No, you get finance perfectly. That's the whole point, is that people a lot of times do a lot less in retirement because their financial industry or their financial advisor scares them out of spending all of their hard-earned money. So I got an idea, Randy. Can I share an awesome idea?
I'm ready.
So what we did, because Randy made me do it, and Randy is the founder of this, is that he made me build an income tool. Now, he wanted me to build an income plan. I said I refused because the income plans are built to scare retirees, not help retirees in retirement. That's how the industry uses them. They build income plans to scare you and to not spend your money. So I said, I won't do that, but I will build an income forecast showing people that they're not spending enough money. So now when you come in for your roadmap, you get an income forecast that will convince you and your loved ones to spend more money. And then if you become a client, we update it every year. And the sad point is you're not going to believe me. Even if the numbers are easy to understand, you're not going to believe me because it takes a while to unwind everything the industry's told you. But by year 2 or year 3, people are taking more trips. They're spoiling their grandkids more. They're doing more fun things in retirement with our plan, because what we do is we shoot out 25 years. If your money grows at 5%, only 5%, we'll show you what's left at the end of 25 years. And we keep using 25 years to illustrate the point that your money will continue to grow in retirement if you let it. And you can just realize, oh my gosh, it doesn't take investment excellence. It takes retiree planning excellence to get people to do all the things they want in retirement. And to do that, we have to encourage people to spend their money. So the income forecast is a huge part of the roadmap that everyone loves to get, because it's the green light, go spend more money of your retirement tool that I think most financial industry people are missing. And if I want to be cynical, Randy, the reason it's missing it is because they charge a percentage. And if you spend your money and someone's charging 1%, they take a pay cut. At Golden Reserve, we charge a flat fee. So we alleviated that problem too when we tied the income forecast to how we charge. Now we get to have that fun with you and enjoy the fruits of all your stories, and you're super happy. And it's just a lot better system. And I can't wait to keep changing the industry with all the listeners at home and everyone else and our clients that are hopefully inspiring people to live their best retirement, building those memory dividends we talk about, as opposed to just large and small cap dividends that really don't mean anything if you're not enjoying your retirement.
Well, Greg has said it many times. I mean, when we first started doing the show, Greg looked at me and goes, nobody runs out of money. I go, well, that's the big fear. Everybody's worried about running out of money. And Greg says, what happens is people have less and they start making sacrifices. I won't go on that trip. I'll put the cruise off till next year. We won't take the kids to Disney World. And that's not what we want for you either. Let's give you some confidence to spend in retirement. Have the income that you need to do the things you want to do. So don't just come in with your statements. Come in with your dreams. We want you to make memories in retirement. That's the whole idea here. Let's build a plan for that. We call it a roadmap for retirement. Give us a look on our website. That's the simplest way to do this. Getyourroadmap.com. Getyourroadmap.com. Well, we talk about, your biggest cost in retirement might be taxes. And people go, I don't understand. Well, many of us think about taxes in the way of, we think of April 15th. Getting our taxes done, are we going to get a refund or not? Well, wealth manager Jeffrey Levine was on the Decoding Retirement podcast. He's a tax guy. I thought he brought up this really good point.
Another common mistake I see individuals make is focusing too much on their annual taxes and their annual tax bill and not enough on what I call their lifetime tax bill. When it comes to good tax planning, it's not about giving anybody the lowest tax bill in any one year. It's looking at their lifetime and trying to figure out how to pay taxes over that extended period of time such that the total of those taxes over your life is as low as possible.
So, Greg, this is something that you and I talk about a lot, and that is looking at things long term. Yeah, it's only 1% fee this year, but what is that over 20 or 30 years? Yeah, I know I have this income, $6,000 a month, but what does that mean for you long term? This guy is also saying the same thing about taxes. Don't just think about taxes for next year. Think about taxes over the next 20, 25 years.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think it comes down to looking backwards or looking forwards. Who do you have helping you drive the car? And that's a really, really powerful way of describing how accountants work, because I think a lot of people are frustrated with their accountant. We're like, I got to pay taxes this year, and blah, 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 blah. It's like, once the clock strikes 12 and it's January 1st, it's over. The game's over. And no one really talks to their accountant until February or March. So there's not a lot you can do. Once the game's over, they're just looking backwards and they're basically updating all the different things that you did over the course of the calendar year. And they're making those adjustments. There's no magic wand where they can just start fixing your tax situation, Randy. And I think that is, a lot of people miss that. They're like, my accountant's not doing a good job. And it's like, well, what do you mean they're not doing a good job? Well, I had to pay a bunch of taxes last year. And it's like, you got an inheritance or you sold a building. What do you think was going to happen? And you weren't thinking ahead. So I think the way we should think about looking forward versus backward when it comes to tax planning is make it like other facets of life. If you plan ahead, you normally get a better result. Like if people always say, well, I'm trying to lose some weight. And I'm like, well, I love chit chat. And so, if you're into fitness, like, so tell me how your week works. And it's like, well, it's kind of letting life throw things at you. I go to the gym, but there's never any proactive planning on how they plan their meals. Like the people that actually get really healthy usually plan out their meals on Sunday or Saturday, and they pre-cook them or they pre-prep them. And then it becomes very easy to be regimented. So you're doing proactive things to have a better result as the week goes on, because you can't get to Friday and be like, what do you want to do? Because we all know what happens at Friday, right? You come home and you're like, pizza. I want pizza. It's like, you want to cook something? No, I don't want to cook something. It's been a week. I just want to eat pizza. Mm-hmm. And that's your mind's way of saying, dude, well, we give up. Like we'll catch up on Saturday and Sunday. I'll do some extra sit-ups, which you can't outwork pizza. But at the end of the day, people try to it. And I think the same way with tax planning, Randy. So when we start thinking about tax planning, we are going to start saying, all right, let's put it on the table. How do you beat Uncle Sam? You ready for this?
Ready.
You pay the tax. You have to pay the tax to beat Uncle Sam. And most people don't understand that no matter what happens, those IRA accounts are going to get taxed no matter what. It's just a question of when and how much. So when you're looking at $1 million IRA, that is not your money. That is a loan from Uncle Sam. And he always collects. So when we start breaking that reality down to people and they start understanding, it's like, oh, shoot, I did take all that money out pre-tax 20 years ago and it grew tax, it compounded tax free. And when I take it out, it's going to be income tax. So we have to get real strategic on what we start thinking about that IRA money, because people lose the most important tax planning years of their retirement because they're in denial. They think it's going to magically go away. This tax problem is going to go away, and it's not. That is the hardest part in our job, to get our retirement planners to convince retirees to start paying tax on their terms and having their own tax plan, as opposed to using Uncle Sam's tax plan. And people are like, what's that mean? What's Uncle Sam's tax plan? It's waiting till your RMDs. It's waiting till 73 and taking out the minimum. Uncle Sam did not. Randy, do you think he did that so that he gets less in taxes?
I think he's pretty devious. All this comes in a big smoky room with a bunch of guys and cigars, and they figure out how to get the best of us.
That is exactly Cohibas, just big cigars. And they're sitting there saying, all right, retirees, how do we make sure we get the most money in taxes? Because people aren't calling the IRS and saying, hey, could you help me save money in taxes? No. So why are we using their plan for our IRA? Yet almost all of America does it, right? I'm just going to take out the minimum. Why? Because I pay the least amount of taxes. Well, what do you think happens when you die? Here's what happens, Randy. The big miss is that people miss out on all that pre-planning during retirement. They don't have a plan because everyone tells you how to put money in your 401k. They don't say how to take it out. So over the course of retirement, you don't touch it. And that means you don't spend it, which is even the worst part. And a lot of times it could be your biggest asset in retirement. But you get there and then the first spouse dies. I know it's not The Notebook. You don't die together holding hands. Spoiler alert. So when the first spouse passes, your tax rates can sometimes double because you go from a couple rate to a single rate. But you have to take the same amount of money out of your IRAs. So that means you could go from paying 10, 15%, maybe, to 15 or 20%, maybe even 25%. So now you're paying more of every dollar that comes out. And that's what matters. What percentage goes to Uncle Sam and what percentage stays in my family? But it gets worse. When the surviving spouse passes and goes to the kids, it gets taxed at the kids' rates, not mom and dad's, who a lot of times are working in their highest earning years, which could then be 25, 30, 35, maybe even 40%. We call that the kiddos penalty. The widows and the kiddos penalty smacks you around because you waited and used Uncle Sam's plan for maybe your largest account in retirement because you didn't want to pay the tax. But here's the devious part about this, Randy. You know why no one complains?
Because they're dead.
Because they're dead. That's exactly right. They don't vote. Nothing changes. And the kids don't care because the kids are like, I guess I get 600,000 instead of $1 million. Okay. It's the lottery effect of the reality of your IRA that you didn't spend it your whole life. Your kids pay a big chunk and go buy a place in Florida, and you're turning in your grave because you're like, you just paid $400,000 of our $1 million IRA to Uncle Sam. Billy, what are you doing, you dummy? And he's like, don't care. It's cold up here in the Midwest. I'm trying to get down to where it's nice. And that's what happens. That's what happens all the time. And no one realizes it because everyone's dead. And the kids don't care, right? They just don't care. And I don't mean it, they don't care in a mean way. It's just not a big focus because it's not their money. So at the end of the day, Randy, the way to beat Uncle Sam, the way to essentially change the script is to start taking money out over the course of retirement when you're alive, you're healthy, you're in your lower retirement tax brackets. Maybe you haven't turned Social Security on, maybe you have. But if you haven't, you can save even more and you get it de-taxed on your terms and your plan. That's what we call our IRA tax plan. Our team of CPAs build a mock one for you at no charge when you come in and get a roadmap for the first time. And then for our clients, we update it every year based on the size of your IRA growth and the changes in the tax laws, all that fun stuff. But the idea is to get that thing de-taxed before either of you pass away. So now it's either converted to a Roth or you got it outside of the IRA tax trap. And now you get to enjoy your money in your family. Instead of Uncle Sam having a big party when you pass away, your family gets to have that party. And you get to enjoy passing that money on to your kids without it coming with a tax bill.
Yeah, think about it. Right now, you're in charge of your money. And even when you pass, you can still be in charge of your money and dictate to Uncle Sam what takes place. It's a pretty good position to be in, and we'd love to put you in that position. Give us a call. Let's sit down and build an IRA tax map for you, along with the entire roadmap for retirement. The big financial news I'm sure you're aware of, in less than 2 weeks, we're going to have another decision on interest rates. And everybody's looking at Jerome Powell right now. Well, Shark Tank's investor Kevin O'Leary, you know him, he says after this one, he's not expecting too much when it comes to movement on rates.
The economy's on fire. We're killing it, period. You're not going to see rate reductions with this strength in the economy right now. I am not investing on the hopes of any rate cuts this year. You got 95% chance of a 25 basis point reduction in September, but that's it.
Okay, so he doesn't expect too much after this. So, Greg, let's talk a little bit about rates here. You and I have said this in the past, that if you're going to go buy a house, it would be a good thing if rates went down. If you're going to buy a CD or something like that, not so good if rates go down. Should we, as retirees or getting ready for retirement, should we make any decisions on what's going on with all of that?
I don't know, Randy. I feel like this is a topic that gets talked about a lot, but doesn't really move the needle for me for a lot of reasons. We're at 4.25 to 4.5, right? Like that's where the current range is, 4.25 to 4.5. And a lot of people are making a big hubbub. I mean, Powell came out and made some pretty strong statements 2 or 3 weeks ago that really moved the market. They were like, oh my gosh, here we go again. This does affect, what people don't realize, there's a big trickle-down effect, right? This not only affects people buying houses, but private equity companies, people selling companies, buying companies. This is a huge, difference. When you're talking about trillions of dollars, it may not sound like a lot, but, 0.25 can make a big difference. And that could jumpstart some other things. But I actually completely agree with O'Leary. I think he's all over it. It's one of those things. We're on fire. The market's roaring. Inflation seems to be in check. Tariffs are falling into place and not having any adverse effect to the economic balance of inflation against what a lot of economists thought was going to happen. But that being said, if it's not broke, why fix it? And I think it comes down to greed a lot. This is what drives a lot of financial decisions. This drives a lot of investor decisions. It drives a lot of blackjack decisions, a lot of craps decisions, a lot of roulette decisions. When you don't walk away when you're up, and it's like, oh, one more month, and it's like, well, what is that? People don't ever do the mental exercise. I always tell people, let's do the exercise. All right, what does one more month get you? Let's say we do a 10% return, and a month is 1/12 of 10. So you start kind of playing through it, and then you apply it to whatever they have in the market, and you're like, is that going to change your life? Well, no, not really. No, not at all, actually. All right, well, then what are we doing? It's like, why would I drive fast if I don't have to? Why would I take risk that I don't need? And I think that is what makes this show a little different, because we're not chasing delta of trying to beat different stocks, or it's like, are retirees watching this? I'm like, I don't know, are they following quarterly reportings? Like, are they like more, hey, Meta's quarterly reports coming out, Apple's quarterly reports going out? I'm like, maybe if that's their passion, and it's like, some people, and I think it's cool if it's your passion, right? Like, if you like investing and having fun with the market, and that's something that you do that you get a lot of enjoyment out of, I think you should do it. I just don't think you should do it with your life savings. That's all. I just don't think, let your, because everyone's a genius now. And it's always funny. It's like, I've been self-investing. Everybody's going to hate this, by the way, because most people that watch this are do-it-yourselfers. It's like, I've been crushing it. You're like, you haven't beat the S&P once in 10 years. Like, you haven't, so you're not winning. America's winning. And I think people equate to, like, I'm great at investing. And this is just a dangerous time. I mean, Randy, we did the statistic. Gosh, I can't remember. It's like 200% or something like that. Don't hold me to that. But it's like, in the last 11 years, the S&P has done all the work. The tech stacks, the Magnificent Seven, have done all the work. You investing in NVIDIA doesn't make you a genius. It just makes you having common sense. Like, it's like, okay, yeah, I'm going to ride that. I mean, now if you screwed up and like put it in Paramount or something, that would be a whole different story. But these are the things that always make me kind of smile, and I don't want to be a jerk. But I also want to be like, why would you think that you're smarter than the smartest people in Wall Street? Right? Like, if you're sitting there saying that I figured it out, and by the way, they probably read the Wall Street Journal once a week. Like, you're spending 1 hour a week to invest your life savings you spent 30 years building. And I need to be mean, because maybe it'll snap you out of the trance. It's like trying to get a buddy to step up when they're up in blackjack. You're like, hey, buddy, you won. You beat the odds. The house isn't going to win, but look around you. These fountains and pools did not build themselves. This isn't a long play. And for me, the market risk is an easy decision. Like, I know people ask me personally, like, I don't take a lot of risk because I just don't want to bet on things I don't know. I'd rather be safe and predictable. And people always ask me what stocks to buy. I always say, I don't know. I don't own any. And that is the honest to God truth. I don't own one stock. So that's one of those things where it's like, it's just not how my brain's wired. I want predictability, and I take a lot of risk on our companies and what we build and the things we do. And my risk profile is a little different than most, but I think the sentiment holds true with how I was raised. I think if you play your cards right and you don't get greedy, doing everything you want in return, because the scoreboard of your account size means nothing. It means nothing. It doesn't change your retirement life. You don't all of a sudden start taking helicopters to your kids' soccer games. No, for people that have $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, it doesn't change anything. It's not generational, strange. We're buying islands or yachts. It doesn't change anything. It just means that you have some more zeros in your account. And why would you risk it? Because the difference that the Wall Street, geniuses have never figured out is that when you lose money at $2 million or $3 million or $1 million, substantially lose money, like a 2020 or a 2000 or 2009 or 10, it changes your life. You stop doing stuff because you're scared and you lose things. Where when a $10 million or $20 million or $50 million or $100 million client loses stuff, it doesn't change your life at all. Mm-hmm. And that's the disconnect of investing that most people can't realize, is that you'll actually have to change your life in retirement if you're gambling with all of it. So our market risk report is built to show people the risk they're taking right now in dollars of what happened in 2022, 2008, 9 and 10. the subprime crash, 2000. And just to show you, here's what your holdings did when the market went backwards, just so you can see in dollars. We don't say, hey, it lost 17.8%. No, you're like, it lost $417,000. And you're like, your account will go down $470,000. You'd be like, what? No, you will actually see the dollars. And then you can ask yourself, hey, at the end of the day, buddy, it's your call. If you want to gamble, gamble. But, we'll sit there and say, this is the risk. If you want to take it. But at least you know the downside of what's happened in the past. And that's not indicative of the future. It could be better. It could be worse. But that's a good starting point to usually wake people up, be like, hey, why don't you just put it in cruise control and, there's safer investments out there for retirees that can get the job done where you get to do everything you want in retirement, which should be your goal versus making those account statements that really mean nothing get bigger.
I look through the radio and through your dashboard right now, and I'm seeing you right there. You're in your 60s, and for some reason, you're watching more financial news than you ever have. I know you because I am you, okay? I get it. I don't know what happens, but all of a sudden, when you get close to retirement, you start watching Fox Business and CNBC, and you start following the market for some reason. I want you to imagine a retirement where you're on a cruise and the market goes down 1,000 points and you don't even care. And that's because you have a roadmap for retirement. You have your income put together. You have your tax plan. You have all of this in place, and all of that you can just shut off. Just hit the off button on all of that. That's what we want for you in retirement. So we talk a little bit on the show about trusts and estate planning and wills and all of that. And you might wonder to yourself, what is it? What's the number? Is there a magic number that I need a trust or a will or an estate plan? And a lot of people say, again, $1 million. Well, this article that I'm looking at in MarketWatch says, no, it's an awful lot less than that. So, Greg, talk to me. Is there a magic number for estate planning before you need a will and a trust?
Randy, I thought we were friends. Stop telling people I'm an attorney. I thought we had an agreement. We had a gentleman's understanding that you weren't going to tell people I was an attorney. At least, let them get into the show a little bit more before we break down that big aha.
Okay.
There's no. So here's the beautiful part about being an estate planning attorney. You get to really get to know your clients, because an estate planning attorney has to know the finance, they have to know the legal, they have to know the family dynamics. And that was probably the favorite part of my job. If you guys didn't know this, Tim Stallings and I started Aler Stallings estate planning and elder law firm around 2010, and it's still, rolling today. And we got to practice for a decade together of really just getting to understand how people thought about their money, how they thought about life. And it had nothing to do with money. Like the most important parts of estate planning, Randy, have nothing. And I mean, absolutely nothing to do with money. I think people are like, yeah, right. Prove it. Well, let's think about an estate plan's basics. Some of the most important parts of estate plan happen when you're alive. And people are like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Because what ends up happening is someone has a kid in their 20s or 30s, and then they don't do anything until retirement. That is the most common fact pattern we came across for, to this day. Hey, I needed to do a will and some guardianship for my kids. And then, down the road, you're like, oh, shoot, I'm retired. I got to do all this other stuff. I might as well, I'm talking about new healthcare. I'm talking about financial stuff. I probably should look at my legal stuff. Well, you can't find your will, or it's buried underneath like birthday cards from your Aunt Irma Jane or something. So you blow the dust off. You're like, yeah, wow, this is old. So the basics that aren't monetary driven that every person has to have, you have to understand the living will, the healthcare power of attorney, and the financial power of attorney. These are important because these documents operate while you're alive. So if you have an issue where your brain function ceases to exist, you need to provide instruction on what to do. This is so that your parents or your loved ones, your spouse, your kids don't have to make that incredibly hard decision. You make it for them. Hey, if two doctors say that and every state's a little different, but hey, if two doctors say that I have no brain function, remove life-sustaining treatment. And that may be a hard thing to do, or it may say you may have different wishes. But at the end of the day, put your wishes on paper so your kids don't have to bear the burden of guessing, because that's a huge burden to put on a family member. So that's what your living will does. I know this is not an easy segment. Brandy Amber's turn off. This is depressing. Yeah, sorry. Well, growing up is hard, right? My back hurts all the time. Get over it. So these are just growing up things. As you get old, you got to take care of stuff. Next, healthcare and financial power of attorney. So people don't realize that your spouse just doesn't have access to all your accounts just because she's your spouse or he's your spouse. So you have to appoint people that if I can't act, this person has permission to make my healthcare decisions. If I can't act, this person has access to my 401ks. Believe it or not, they're locked up and you don't have access to them. So what if that 401k is one of your main, accounts to supplement your income, and you now have Alzheimer's, dementia, or you're unconscious or in a coma? Well, your spouse doesn't have access to it. And they're like, oh, no, she's on the account. No, she's not. She's a beneficiary. That means you have to die. So that is a huge miss that happens all the time when it comes to planning, where it's like, no, you have to have these documents updated. And who do you want? Do you have the right agents? Are they emotionally stable? Can they handle the pressure cooker of these decisions? Well, you shouldn't just name everybody. You name the right person for the job. Who should be your healthcare power of attorney? Who should be your financial power of attorney? Who should be the executor of your will? Then you talk about your will. Your will is essentially where your stuff goes. Your trust can help protect assets from the nursing home. It can help just delay distributions for your grandkids or just pay for their college. You can do all kinds of fun stuff. So don't mail it in just because you don't think you have a certain amount of money. This isn't the Scrooge McDuck threshold for planning. Everyone should have a plan in retirement. And I think that's what gets missed. Like, the beautiful part about all of this, Randy, is that we have access to all these attorneys. And because of this, when we build our roadmap, you get to sit down at no cost to talk about what you may need or not need in retirement, which is a huge superpower. It gets ignored by financial advisors all the time because they don't want to involve attorneys because we're smarter. And that's the real issue, right? Is that, we had to go 7 years of schooling, and they had to be a captain of a football team or something. So at the end of the day, when we break this down and hopefully give people some options, they then can build a plan that works for them. You don't have to do anything, but at least you know your options. I always tell my daughter, whenever we do things, she gets annoyed, but she likes it. I want to give you options in life, kid. So you should know all your legal options when it comes to retirement, and they shouldn't be locked away around 3 or 4 business cards that you have to go reach out. A lot of our attorneys are right down the hallway. And that's what makes it special, is that we get to connect all the dots of retirement planning. It's not just finance, not just investments. We get to attach the tax and the legal all in one. And that's how you build retirement plans that are comprehensive and then stand the test of time, because rocky roads are ahead in retirement. There will be health issues. There will be deaths. There will be realities that you have to face, and you can't be surprised. You need a team ready for those things. And that's how we built Golden Reserve and why it works so well, navigating through the joys and the challenges of retirement. And it starts with the roadmap, Randy.
Well, again, I always like to talk about the difference between Golden Reserve and what you're going to find out there elsewhere. And one of the big differences is right here. If you go to a financial advisor and you bring up, hey, can you help me with a will? Can you help me with an estate plan? Can you help me with a trust? They're going to give you a business card. They go, oh, this is a guy I work with. You can go there. If you come to Golden Reserve, we're going down the hall, and we're going to all work together on your retirement plan. Huge difference. Well, a lot of times you've heard of retirement calculators. You go online and there's a bunch of them out there, and you put a little information in there and they'll tell you if you're on the road to retirement and are you going to be a success. We've found that those are mostly garbage. Well, I found a fee calculator the other day that says put in your investments and what you're getting for a return, and we'll tell you what the fees are. This was a new one to me. So it asked me to put in some numbers, and I just put in, okay, I've saved $1 million. Everybody starts there. And they say, how long are you going to use that money? 25 years, I put in. My return, I put 4%. I was rather, conservative there. And then they asked, what am I going to pay my advisor? And it's very common to pay 1 or 1.5% in fees. And then it came out on that $1 million over 25 years, I will pay $509,000 in fees. Half of what I saved for retirement is going to somebody else. That was kind of shocking. So, Greg, is that anywhere in line with what real life numbers are, or is this another piece of garbage online?
So, Randy, remind me, didn't this guy, who's this really smart guy, good looking, wrote a book, I believe, that talked about this very issue?
It's got a little stubble.
He's got a shirt with white dots on it that his wife picked out. That's probably a little too cool for him. All right, so holy moly, we've been talking about this for, the funny part about fees, people seem not to care. Even when we do this, they don't care. So fee analysis is part of every roadmap. So we do this to you. Your financial advisor will never know. They will never know we do it. You just bring your statements in. We have an algorithm in the system. So just so you guys know, your Chip from Eddie or Rick or Merrill or wherever won't know that we're doing it. So you're not cheating on them. And we'll show you what your investment costs are and what your advisor costs are, because there's two different ones. The difference is that the advisor cost, most people say 1%, but they don't know which accounts it applies to a lot of times. They don't know what it is in dollars. And the investments, no one knows because they net it off the gains or add it to the losses. So it just kind of gets summed up. So to break it down to see exactly what you're paying in dollars every year is a very powerful experience. I love the fact that you found a fee analysis. They're not very common. Spoiler alert, no one really wants anybody to know. Right? They don't want to know what the industry is doing. Now, that's 1.5%. And that's a lot of times what the advisor paying. That's not even for the investments that you own. And the expense ratios of the event, you kind of bake all those things in, and this stuff really adds up quickly. And people are like, well, I don't believe that. It's impossible. Well, here's a little fun fact, right? Has anyone ever seen I'm sure you've been at your house and someone had a leaky faucet. And a slow to average leaky faucet drips 10 times per minute, which is a gallon per day or 347 gallons per year. A fast leaky faucet, drip, 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 is 120 times per minute or 11 gallons a day. Oof. Or 3,900 gallons a year. The average pool size in America is 20,000 gallons. That means a slow dripping faucet will fill up half that pool over the course of retirement. Huh. It will fill up a fast dripping faucet will fill up the pool in 5 years. 20,000 gallons. Now, that is the magic of the financial industry's genius on how to charge, because 1% or 1.5% feels itty bitty, itty bitty. Oh, he's only charging 1%. That's cute. I like him. He texts me on my birthday. It's itty bitty, 1%, 1.5. But over 25 years on millions of dollars, we're talking about, your example's $509,000. $509,000 on a $1 million account over 25 years. And that's 1.5. What if, a lot of times we see a combination rate. If it's 1.5 and another 50 bips of investment fees, that could be, 600,000, 700,000. Mm-hmm. I mean, the feeling herder just keeps happening. And you have to ask yourself, do I want to pay for my financial advisor's dream house in Florida or my own? And what am I really getting for this? Like, there's a lot of shiny charts, but I think he's got like 500 clients. So am I getting that much attention? How much attention could I really be getting? If you want to figure out if your financial advisor is not doing anything on your case, bait and switch them. This is the best question because they are so silly. They'll brag about it. Hey, how many clients do you have, man? You seem really successful. They're like, I got like 500 or 600. And you're like, ha, I knew you didn't have enough time to work on my case. You'll get them every time. The average, most people, if you think about a 2,000-hour work week, start doing the math. Like in our company, we believe that the model breaks around 100 clients. If you have more than 100 clients, it's really hard to provide great customer service. So, that really breaks the financial model because their goal is to have a bunch of clients, do as little as possible and charge 1.5%. To help you understand what you're paying, to start that value analysis, we do our fee analysis at no charge as part of every roadmap we build. If you bring in your statements, we'll knock it out for you. We'll show you. And we don't do it as a, look at this, you screwed up. We say, look, everyone looks like this. This is the industry's problem, not your problem, but let's fix it going forward. There's a lot of, flat fees are going to be the future, in our opinion, of financial advising, where you charge based on the work you're doing, not the zeros in your account. Because if you have $1 million or $2 million, the $2 million person shouldn't pay twice as much. They're doing the same stuff. And I think that is the aha moment that the fee filter that we use comes to life. We're like, gosh, if I keep growing my money, I just keep paying more, but they're not doing anything more. That doesn't seem fair because it's not. That system is an antiquated system that needs to be replaced with a more retirement-friendly system. And hopefully our fee analysis starts you down that journey and path where you can say, here's what I'm paying. Am I getting value for that? Am I getting the V word, value? And I think you're like, I'm paying $25,000 a year. That feels like a lot because it is a lot. So hopefully that starts the journey of maybe considering a change in your retirement. If it's not with us, then hopefully it's with someone else that is charging that flat fee and adding taxes and adding the legal and all of the different parts that are a full retirement plan. And it starts with the roadmap, Randy, because that fee analysis is complementary and part of every one we build.
If you start reading about retirement, no doubt you're going to read about something about buckets of money. Financial advisors love to talk about buckets of money. There is a hole in your bucket. There's a leak in your bucket, and you should be the biggest leak in your bucket. not your financial advisor. That should be where the money's coming out. Give us a call. Give us a look on our website. Let's go through it together. GetYourRoadmap.com. GetYourRoadmap.com. Check us out online, and we will be here next week. Hope to see you then.